Hi everyone, good afternoon. Again, my name is Michael. I will be leading today's Wellness Wednesday presentation, which is about understanding your cholesterol results. We will go ahead and get started right now. I want to make sure we have enough time to get through this presentation. And again, thank you so much for joining. This information is provided to increase your awareness. It is not intended to be medical advice. If you believe that you may have any medical conditions or have specific questions regarding your health, please see your physician. And if you do have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. Feel free to use the Q&A feature in Microsoft Teams. All right, so today we'll be talking about how to best understand our cholesterol results. We'll talk about the different types of cholesterol and the desired ranges and kind of the things that could happen if we don't get regularly tested. And then we'll also discuss ways to improve our cholesterol through a healthy lifestyle. All right. So, what is cholesterol? So, a simple way to define it is a waxy, fat-like substance that's found all throughout the body. Every cell in the body does require cholesterol. It's also needed to function normally. So, we do need cholesterol. Again, it's used in the cell membrane structure, hormone production, and vitamin D production. And it is transported throughout the bloodstream by something called lipoproteins. And so, in the right amounts, again, we do need cholesterol, but things get tricky and even dangerous when we have too much of it. So, the risk to our health does increase as the amount of cholesterol increases. Too much of it can form plaque on the artery walls, making it more difficult for your heart to circulate blood. And in general, cholesterol comes from two sources. So the first source is actually our own body. Our liver creates all the cholesterol we would need, and the rest of it comes from our diet, typically from animal sources of food, things like meat, poultry, and full fat dairy products will raise cholesterol levels, typically when it's high in saturated and trans fats, which we'll discuss in more detail in a second. So again, that's the general overview of cholesterol. There are two main types of cholesterol, the good and bad types, which I'm sure you've heard of before. HDL is the good kind. I remember that it is the good kind because HDL starts with H and we want that to be high. So HH. It's composed of generally relatively more protein and less fat, and it essentially cleans up cholesterol in the body. So it carries cholesterol from the blood to the liver, which it is then breaks it down. So the more the better because it lowers the bad cholesterol. LDL is the bad kind. I remember that that's the bad kind. L is for lousy. So that's the bad kind. It's composed of less protein and more fat, and it's sticky. So it can stick to the blood vessel walls, leading to atherosclerosis, which we'll show an image of that in a second. And for that reason, it can increase the risk of heart disease. So again, HDL, good kind, H is high. LDL, the bad kind, L for lousy. Triglycerides is also another important component to cholesterol results. It's the most common type of fat in the bloodstream, and it is used as a source of energy in the body. Triglyceride levels go up if we are consuming more calories than our body is able to use. So those calories do get converted to triglycerides, which are then stored in fat cells. So triglycerides from unused calories can get stored in fat cells, and that would further raise triglycerides. And these are dangerous because high triglycerides lower HDL, which, as you recall, is the good kind of cholesterol. And that could increase the risk of heart disease. All right, so what happens if high cholesterol is left untreated? So unfortunately, a lot can happen if it's unmanaged for a long time. First, we mentioned atherosclerosis, so kind of like the buildup in the artery walls. And that is generally the driving mechanism behind a lot of the other life-threatening conditions that could result. This plaque that builds up could result in stroke, and the telltale signs of that are trouble walking, trouble with speech or understanding, paralysis of one's face, of a leg or arm, headaches, vision impairment. These could all indicate a stroke. Heart attack could be indicated by angina or pain or tightness in the chest. Pain or tightness could also result in the neck, back, or arms, especially that left arm. It could result in fatigue, lightheadedness, or an abnormal heartbeat. Please note that the symptoms for women could be a little bit different. I've heard of a feeling of heartburn, of just general fatigue. So please note that those lists of symptoms could look different for women. Untreated high cholesterol could also result in high blood pressure, which does not have any symptoms. So it is important to check for this as well as cholesterol. Other conditions include peripheral vascular disease, which could cause leg pain, especially in the when walking or in the buttocks. And then chronic kidney disease, which generally um, it can have some symptoms, but it's also possible that there are no symptoms as well. Some of those symptoms could include abnormal heart rhythms, fluid in the lungs, insufficient urine production, weight loss, and fatigue. Another great reason to get your cholesterol checked. Again, just because of how varied those symptoms might be. All right, and I do see a question in the chat. Just someone asked if we can get a printed version or print out this PowerPoint. I will double check on that. So that's a great question. I'll double check. I know this meeting is recorded, but I will double check and get back to you. If you did want it printed out, just put your name in the chat if you don't mind, and I'll look into it and get back to you. All right. Continue to ask questions. Don't be shy. All right, so this is an illustration of atherosclerosis. Again, that's that plaque buildup between the layers in the arteries, and that results in the narrowing of the arteries, which limits blood flow. And this is really the driver behind some dangerous conditions like the heart attacks, strokes, or the peripheral artery disease. All right, so next we will go through the recommended ranges for the different cholesterol tests. Please let me know if you need me to go through this a little slower. I'm going to focus on the desirable ranges. So for the total cholesterol, generally we should aim for under 200. Your doctor might have different recommendations for you based on your medical history. So these are good guidelines, but your needs might vary. The HDL are the good kind, again, higher the better. 60 and above is best for men and women, but those guidelines do change by sex for the poor and the better categories. But again, safe to say most of us should shoot for 60 at a minimum. LDL or the bad cholesterol generally should be under 100. If you have certain conditions, you might be asked by a doctor to get even lower than 100. I've heard of like 70 before. I've even heard someone who, I think they said they were told to try to get under 50. So again, please check with your doctor. Triglycerides are optimally under 100. So, who should get tested and when? So, I imagine that most of us have gotten tested before. Low risk individuals over the age of 20 should generally be screened every 5 years. Could be more frequent depending on your family history and risk. There are a lot of risk factors, many of which are in our control, some of which are not. These include tobacco use, high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney disease, hypothyroidism. Generally, men over the age of 45 and women over the age of 55 are at a higher risk of high cholesterol. Those with family history, those people who are overweight, and those with a poor diet or a lack of physical activity. And there are some genetic causes too. So there are people who, at a really young age, could actually have high cholesterol due to genetic reasons. So again, the high risk population or those with a family history, it's important to get checked not only for yourself, but for perhaps your family members too. We encourage you to contact your healthcare provider if you think you qualify for a screening. You can actually schedule that pretty easily in the My Geisinger by going to appointments, schedule an appointment, and lab visit. So again, you can do that pretty easily in My Geisinger. So what can you do? The good news is you can do a lot, and a lot of it would come down to lifestyle. There are specific exercise recommendations, namely some sort of aerobic physical activity at a moderate pace between 150 and 300 minutes a week. If you're doing more vigorous activity, that's between 75 and 100 minutes a week. How do you know if your exercise is moderate or vigorous? That's a great question. A general rule of thumb is if you have to gasp for air and you're not able to say more than a few words without gasping for air, that's vigorous. If you can speak comfortably, but perhaps you can't sing, that's probably moderate. And when it comes to weightlifting or resistance exercises, major muscle groups should be exercised about 2 or more days a week, but not on consecutive days if possible. And no matter what your exercise looks like, choose the kind you enjoy. When it comes to diet, you know, generally speaking, it's helpful to swap out animal-based sources of fats for plant-based sources. So meats and whole fat dairy products, for example, could raise cholesterol, whereas things like vegetable oils, salmon, avocados, nuts, and seeds could lower the bad cholesterol. Other culprits here are trans fats. On food labels, it's called partially hydrogenated oils. So you could look out for those on shortening, baked goods, and margarine. And in general, limiting refined carbs and choosing high fiber foods could also help. You've probably heard of statins before. This is a very common medication for high cholesterol. With any medication, please do not ever stop it suddenly. Just wanted to put ahead, just some advice there. Um, Never stop taking a medication suddenly. So just wanted to clarify that is true for statins as well. And these are really good questions to ask your doctor. How and when should I take this medication? Are there any medications you should not be taking alongside of it, etc. Even foods, alcohol, or activities could interfere. And it's helpful to know about side effects as well. All right, so I do see that we are approaching time. This was a lot of information at once. Like I said, I will be checking into sharing the PowerPoint with you. So if you left your name in the chat using the Q&A feature, I will be in touch. I just wanted to make sure I could do that before I send it. I will stay on for another few minutes here, but please feel free to ask any questions you have. And I left up on the slide some resources for the health plan members, such as the mail order pharmacy, and giving us your feedback. Again, thank you so much for joining today's session. We hope you found it helpful. And we had a pretty good turnout today, so thank you. If you are interested in health coaching, we do offer health coaching, lifestyle support, which is no charge as well. So that's another great benefit to know about. And like I said, I'll be sticking around for another few minutes here, but if you did not have any questions, you're free to go. And thank you again.